I've got a million stories I can tell you. Some of them are X-rated, so I'll leave those out of it. I thought I learned all the language I had from my dad, but Joe taught me a few new phrases. Joe got me involved in the CAF. I first met Joe. I used to put on an air show over at Oxnard for several years, and Joe and the group would bring over the C-46, and he'd say, "Why don't you join us?" I said, "Well, I don't have time." And finally he said, "Come on, join us." So I came over, and he said, "We need pilots, we need pilots." So I talked to the pilot at the time that was in charge, and Russ Rosendahl knows this story, but he said, "Well, how much military flight time you got?" I said, "None." He said, "We don't need you." So I left again. In 1990, 91, Joe says, "Where the hell have you been? We need you." So anyway, I got involved. I learned a ton from Joe. Joe was always enthusiastic. We were working out of that three-sided leaking Lena of a hangar we had, and I told Joe, I said, "We got to do something about this." He said, "You can do it, Steve, you can do it." We talked to other members, "Nah, you'll never do it." So Joe said, they said, "What? We're going to do it." So with Russ Rosendahl's help and Joe's enthusiasm and kicking my ass, we got the first set of hangars done. So, you know, Joe was always like that. He'd make it happen. I got to tell you one quick story. Ron was talking about patching airplanes together. We were coming home from an air show. And Gary, maybe you can help me. I think it was up in Utah, was it? We were doing an air show. Coming home, and I stopped for gas at this little airport. I can't remember where the hell it was now. And the Bearcat wouldn't start. Gary was in the C-46, and the boost pump wouldn't work. And I said, "Well, I'm stuck." So Joe gets on the radio and said, "No, God damn it." He said, "Get under there and beat that pump with a hammer and a board. It'll work." Okay. So I got this poor little line boy, opened up the belly of the C-46, or the Bearcat, told him what I needed to do. I said, "When I tell you, start banging on this pump with this board and a hammer." He looked at me like I was out of my mind. I said, "If it starts, you got to close the door." Okay. So the C-46 is orbiting. The kid starts pounding on the boost pump, and it worked. I started it up, he closed the doors and got home. Well, that was Joe. He knew ways to get away with things, and I always remember him telling stories about when he was in Chicago, pilots would land with an airliner with a bunch of squawks. "Well, this doesn't work and that doesn't work." Joe said, "We fix them, okay for through service." So they'd have to fix it in LA. So, but Joe knew how to do things, and you know, he was always enthusiastic. Could you argue with him? No. You could argue with him, but no, you couldn't win, but you could argue with him. And, you know, every memory I have of Joe is one of the greatest experiences of my life. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Cuvier, Master Sergeant, U.S. Air Force, retired. And it's really wonderful to see this many people that loved or liked Joe. I got to tell you that the way I met Joe was when I was working on the Constellation, the C-121C out there that is now in Switzerland. And many a time we needed parts, mainly nuts, bolts, and screws, things like that were kind of hard to get. So I would come over here to the CAF, not knowing what I'd expect to find, but I ran into Joe and I told him of our problems, what we needed, and he was more than willing to help us with getting that airplane flying again, giving us just about anything we needed out of the CAF. So that went on for quite a few years until it eventually flew away in 2003, and then it was 2003 and I didn't have an airplane to work on anymore, basically. And I kept hanging around here, and then Joe just said to me, he goes, "No, you're always around here, why don't you join?" So I said, "You know, that's a good idea. Besides, you know, I could probably do good with a promotion to colonel anyway." So if it wasn't for Joe Peppito, I wouldn't be a colonel in the Command of Air Force today. Love the guy. Thank you.
When I first showed up, museum guys, they told me, report to Colonel Joe Peppito. Oh wait. And so I walked into his office and he turned around and looked me up and down and goes, how you doing? That's always how I greet him. First thing he did was, I thought I was going to be working in an oil shed or something, cleaning something. First thing he did was put me on the Bluebird for annual. I couldn't believe it. But, and I asked him stories almost every day. I just wanted a half hour just to hang out with the guy and talk to him. And my favorite story of his, I asked him what his first thought was when he saw the P-47. I'll never forget what he told me. He goes, how the hell do they get that thing off the ground? I loved it. The guy was great. And I think, I'd like to think that he was very fond of me, mainly because I brought him donuts every day. He really did. But he taught me a lot. And not just about airplanes, like that's the guy in the thing. I really miss him. Wish he was here.
My name is Frank Warnell. I've been in the wing for about 20 years, but I actually met Joe a number of years before that for the first time at the Chino Airport when he and a bunch of other guys and Lefty Gardner showed up to pick up the Bearcat, which was just dripped in bare metal then and all. And he was all over that thing like a mother hen before Lefty got to fly it. I think it was after it was the first ground engineer fighter that the wing had. I think that's when he was all stoked about that. The Thunderbolt would have been better for him. When we started going to Midland, when I started going to Midland, I wound up rooming with Joe most of the time. We'd go on the C-46 and the Convair. And I think because we're both kind of chunky Italians from New York, and we like Thunderbolts better than Mustangs, and we both snored, they preferred us to be ripped together. So we generally roomed at the Best Western Garden Oasis together until he stopped coming. And from that point on, when I go, I'm just there by myself. And that's by choice. Joe was a great roommate to have around here. Thank you.
I'm Russ Rosenthal, and I joined the CAF in 1982. Joe came online a few months later, and we've been friends ever since. A lot of these people before me have told you a lot of interesting stories, but I want to add one more to things that are interesting, and that is the fact that Marge and he always opened their house to a lot of us, and we had a lot of fun times. Good food and things to eat there too. So we thank the family as well as Joe Peppito and his reputation of being a friendly and a sincere guy has always been with us. So we thank you for that. And I flew the C-46 many years out here while it was going on. And Joe oftentimes flew with me. So we developed a camaraderie, you might say, of taking care of each other in that airplane. And over the years, we've had a lot of fun doing it. I thank the family, and I shall always remember